Welcome to our regular weekly chat on the virtual city of YouTooSpain. Today we're going to be talking to our best mate and residency specialist Chris from Upsticks.es, all about why some of you need a visa to live in Spain. Yes, we're going back to basics once again. So everything you need to know and more will be answered, along with any questions you have about residency or living in Spain in general. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be announcing who my special famous guests will be on next week's show. Ooh! And we have some extra information at the end and prizes just for you. Yes, you right there. In the meantime, gather round. It's time for our cosmic theme tune. Here we go. Let's dance. All right, then, before I bring in Chris, 3 very quick pieces of important information. You can help YouTooSpain. Oh, yes, please help us to keep providing you with this so helpful information that you learn today and on every video by making a donation through Patreon. And that gets you access to loads of extra stuff, behind the scenes videos and stuff like that. There's a link in the video description below. Number 2, check out our website, YouTooSpain.com, for more amazing information, blog articles, resources, just for you. There's lots on there. And number 3, last but not least, if you click on any of the links in the video description below, you'll get great discounts on things you need and excellent service from our partners, and you'll be supporting YouTooSpain. For example, if you're buying a house or moving over here or sending your regular pension or investments over, you need the best currency exchange company with the best service, the best advice and the best exchange rate to maximize your spending power and safeguard yourself against the sort of massive currency fluctuations we're seeing right now for lots of different reasons, something to do with prime ministers and chancellors of the exchequer, you might have heard. So use the smart currency exchange link below to get your free account and a free advisor and access to 24-hour app and a whole range of services. Don't leave it till the last minute. It's something that you need to prepare well in advance for, because the exchange rate might plummet. It might just do that. I'll be talking about that on Monday on the live show there. So you'll be supporting YouTooSpain at no extra expense to you. So it's a win-win. So without further ado, let's meet our wonderful guest. It's Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Hola, good morning.
Good morning. So are you well today?
I am, yeah, very well, thanks, very well.
Good. We have
nice sunny day. Love October. It's when Spain comes into its own, doesn't it? In autumn, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's very nice. You can still get down to the beach and be nice and warm. We've got a gig this afternoon, me and my band, and we're in a chiringuito right on the beach, so that's going to be lovely. It's still going to be really warm.
Whereabouts? Give us the location.
In Caleta, which is near Algarrobo and all those places.
Caleta de Villet.
Yeah. Wow. Very nice.
I know there's a great restaurant there called Eclipse, I think it is.
Oh, nice.
They do a fantastic menu of the day in there.
Lovely. I have to visit that. I think we're playing it. Is it El Tropi? I think that's the one.
El Tropi.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Not been there before. Anyway, so we have John Nelson on the live chat. Hello from Fragiliana.
Hey,
how you doing, mate? He's singing with us this afternoon, so we'll see you in a minute. And Bev is back in London now. She loved Fuengirola. And so your prizes should be on the way. Did I send you her address?
Don't know.
There we go. If not, we'll get it sorted. So
I know I did the posting yesterday. So it came through and got processed. It should be on its way.
Brilliant. So do you have any shout outs? Oh, we got Barry from Unitech as well. Hello, Barry.
Hey, Barry. We've got shout outs. I met with John and Sheila yesterday, which was nice, who I know watched the show. So Mr. Bentley. So just give him a shout out. I think he might be watching this morning as well.
He's not watching live. He sent me a message before saying he's flying back to the UK this morning, so I'll watch later. That was just before the show started. So hello in the future, John. So we'll keep the show nice and tight today because you've got busy stuff to do after as well. So
Yeah.
we're going back to basics again. We did all about what did we do about last week? That was we're going on to
NIE,
the NIE, of
NIE,
course. Yeah,
NIE,
yeah.
NIE last
So
week.
for anyone who's new to the idea of moving to Spain, these back to basics things are really handy. So the first question is, who actually needs a visa for Spain?
So anybody who's a third country national needs a visa if you want to come and live in Spain, unless you have a relationship or have a connection to an EU partner, or you're a beneficiary of somebody who can take EU residency in Spain, and then you can take advantage of their situation, shall we say, their position. And evidently, anybody who's EU doesn't need a visa for Spain.
hmm There's I've had this question before. People are confused between the Spain visas and the Schengen visa. That's a different thing, isn't it?
It is, yes. So the Schengen visa is going to allow you to travel within the Schengen zone, shall we say, for up to 90 days, whereas the Spain, for a visa, if you want to come and live in Spain and say now, evidently after Brexit, if you're a British citizen and you don't have access to any other passport, as we know with a lot of the videos that you've done, some people have managed to get Irish passports, but if you don't have that possibility, then if you've only got a British passport and you want to come and live in Spain, then you're going to need a visa of some sort.
hmm So, and I'll just point out for the people who are watching from outside, there are, I think, 63 countries who don't need a Schengen visa to get into the Schengen area. And
Right.
so they all have what's called a visa waiver, which is why we don't really hear about most of the countries that we speak to, people from there, the English speaking countries, none of them really need a Schengen visa. So if you're not one of those, if you're a citizen of another country that's not one of those 63 countries, that's when you need a Schengen visa, and you'll also need your residency visa as well. So just to clear that one up.
I didn't know it was 63. To be honest with you, I know obviously now, obviously Brits don't need to actually apply for a Schengen visa; they can just come in and out and enjoy the 90 180. Which I've been using your video actually quite a bit to explain to people how it works, because there's still, going back to basics, there's still a misunderstanding there where the two biggest misunderstandings we get with the 90 180 rule is that one, you can go out, reset it, and come straight back in. That's a big misunderstanding. And two is the how it works in a sort of a linear calendar way. So how the days drop off the end, and the days you earn while you're in the while you're away, shall we say, from the Schengen area, and the days that you gain. So quite often, when we're talking, not so much with people who are potentially going to come in on an NLB, this doesn't really come up in conversation. But a lot of the time with golden visa inquiries and stuff, people who don't particularly want to be a fiscal resident in Spain but qualify for a golden visa, which allows them to take advantage of that circumstance where they can spend more days out than in. When you're working out what they actually want to do, they can stay within the 90 180. There's no need to do yourself out. We do ourselves out of business. I'm looking at this going, well, really, you could probably work this out without getting a visa at all, making the investment.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So shall we go through the different kinds of visa as well, and then we'll see what each visa allows you to do, I suppose.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different visas, but they come down to the basics. So we know the very famous one that everybody talks about, the non-lucrative visa, which no one really knew about before Brexit, and now everybody talks about. Seems to me the most popular replacement, shall we say, for residency before Brexit. But the non-lucrative visa doesn't allow you to work or exercise any activity in Spain for the first 5 years, when you have to go through the renewals and get to that, what they call larga duración at the end. Then you can work for 5 years when you get your residency. It's a temporary residency period, obviously up to the 5 years. We have work visas, which have to be applied for by the company or or whatever person who's going to employ you in Spain, which does allow you to work. Obviously, there's student visas, which allow you to study. Again, they're applied for by the body that you're going to study at, whether it be university or whatever. And then you've got the self-employed visas, which obviously allow you to run a business here in Spain. So that's the 4 basics, really.
Now there's the entrepreneur visa, which is slightly different from the self-employment visa. We'll be talking about the difference between those on a future program, I think, when I get.
Yes, so that's it's actually a completely different platform as well. So we'll be talking about the golden visa and the entrepreneur visa, the investor platform. We should do a show on that actually, because it's actually a completely different organism that you apply to as well.
I'll just make a note of that. Golden visa show. Got lots of ideas written down already. We've got 3 for this morning. So we have some questions from Facebook as well, but we'll carry on with the questions on here. So what does the visa allow you to do? I mean, we'll stick with it. We said NLV, the non-lucrative visa. What does that allow you to do?
It allows you to kick back on the beach and enjoy yourself, really. It allows you to live in Spain. Obviously, there are, if we keep to the, so you can obviously live in Spain, be a resident in Spain. What it doesn't allow you to do, so let's go on, is be out of Spain in the first 5 years for more than 10 months. So this is a very common misunderstanding as well. And what we're getting now, we're deep into the first year renewal process now. So obviously it feels like we've been talking about non-lucrative visas for 20 years now, but obviously it's only been around 20 months. And people are now coming to this renewal process, and a lot of people who got the initial visa were under the misunderstanding that you could spend up to, but no more than 6 months out every year on a non-lucrative visa, and that's wrong. That's wrong if you want to continue the process of renewing your temporary residency and get to your larga duración, as they call it. You can only spend in that first 5-year period 10 months out of Spain, which averages obviously to 2 months a year. So that's what it doesn't allow you to do. What it does allow you to do is live here and obviously enjoy yourself.
So it actually doesn't stop you from if you go for more than 10 months. If you go over that, doesn't mean you've got to give up your residency. It just means that when you apply for your permanent residency at the end of the 5 years, you're going to have problems. You're just going to have to stay as a temporary for another year and fulfill the financial requirements. Is that right?
No. You would to get to that. You wouldn't be granted your should we say your permanent status at the end of the 5 years. So you'd have to stay within the rules to be granted that basically, and also within your renewal period as well. You've got to make sure that you stay within so you can't have been outside for more than 6 months, and when you go to renew, you have to make sure that you're inside the period as well, because at the 3 years point, if you've been outside more than 10 months, they're not going to allow you to renew either.
Okay, that's good to know. So there's a question just come up. Shall I come to that now? This is not quite on the subject of today, but there you go. My name is Cyprian, and I'd like to know what advice would you give in regards to families with young kids, 5 and 8. We live in London, have dual citizenship, British and Romanian. Presumably you want to move over and live and work. Is that what you want to do, Cyprian? So
Romanian's EU, isn't it? So you can come and register under the EU platform, basically. So as we know, I think we've explained it before, whereas obviously an EU citizen, you have the right to come to Spain without any visa, and then you have to register if you intend to spend more than 90 days at the local foreign office, which we call extranjerías. And the basics of registering a residency are that you have healthcare of some sort, whether it be state or private healthcare, money to support yourself and your family, and somewhere to live. Okay, so obviously we know that across Spain, the variations of the requirements are slightly different. Some places ask for more money. For example, I know that in Alicante, strangely, in places like Valencia, shall we say, they ask for a set amount of money in a bank account for more than 6 months, but you're supposed to register within 90 days. Whereas here in Malaga, for example, if you own a property, you could just use a nota simply and don't have to show any money in the bank account. So there are variations to the theme of how things are judged in the extranjerias, but as an EU citizen, you have the right to come and obviously just register. As a non-EU citizen, now you have to ask for permission to come, which comes in the form of a visa.
Okay, so he's asking actually, he says we're concerned about finding English schools. We did a program with Chris's wife actually before Christmas, all about whether you should go to a school, an international school that teaches in English, or whether you should go to a Spanish school. So I would suggest you go back and have a look for that video. It's on one of our playlists there about moving to Spain and living in Spain. That might answer a lot of your questions. But I would say with children that old, 5 and 8, go to a Spanish school. You don't have to pay the huge fees that you pay at international schools, and they actually learn Spanish a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean the variation we see. So my kids go to a public school here in Alarin de la Torre, and there's very few. Our town's predominantly Spanish population, should we say. We don't have a very big expat population, so in their school I think there's only like 8 or 9 expat kids in their school, but evidently me and my wife, we speak English at home, so we need them to be able to speak Spanish, outside. So that's from 5 months old. They've always we put them into nursery, and they've spoke Spanish ever since. Whereas a lot of the Spanish kids go to where my wife works, is a private school, because they speak English all day in the private school and they have Spanish at home. So it's the reverse situation. One thing I would say, so I had a conversation with Antonio the other day, our accountant, and he's recently moved his kids into a school in Figueroa, which is quite, it's a very multinational area. And he was like, it's amazing because, they're actually like, there's only 3 or 4 Spanish kids in the class. Everybody else is from around different areas of the world. So they're learning so many things, so. And that's a public school as well, and it's a completely different demographic to where we live. So, I think it's as much as choosing your area, really. As to, you can't really, do they go to public or private? It depends, because public schools are completely different if you come to Alarin de la Torre or Figueroa.
There you go. So lots of things you need to consider when you're deciding on areas. That's another video that I'm going to do as well. A lot of people ask online, where can I move to in Spain? And it's a huge question. So we'll cover that, I think.
One of the dads that at this school where my kids go to, really nice guy, he was in La Cala de Mijas for ages. He worked in London for 5 years, so his English is really good. And he was like, I spent more time speaking English and Spanish in the class, but the curriculum was in Spanish. So, whereas it's very area dependent.
There you go. Okay, so back to visas. Where do you apply for visas?
At your consulate. So every Spanish consulate will have what they call a demarcación, which is the area which they cover. Okay, now obviously we're not going to get too deep into requirements on this show, but what you have to, I have a lot of questions about people who live in the London catchment area, because a demarcación is catchment area, and they go, well, we can't get an appointment here, can we go to Manchester, for example? And you can't. You have to go where in the area where you live, whichever consulate that falls in your area. How do they check that? Well, they check that with the documents that you provide. So, for example, bank account statements, criminal records checks, etc., etc. They'll all have an address on there, which would be your habitual residence in the UK, and that's how they check that you're in the right place.
And both YouTooSpain.com and Upsticks.es have got maps on them, and And I know we've got the same information because I stole the maps off your website to put them on mine. And I've
I've
also
got them on the wall.
got them. Yeah, yeah.
We've got them in frames on the wall because sometimes if I'm on a call and I'm going, where's that? I'm going, like, my geography is rubbish. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and they've
that's
got
Manchester. Yeah.
they've got a full list of the counties as well. And I made a video all about it, which was very recent as well. So if you prefer to watch a video on it, it's quite funny because I play a couple of characters on there, and they do all of the different accents for all the different counties, or at least they attempt to, or I attempt to, because it's me really. So there we go. If you want to watch the fun video, that's where it is on our channel. And let's see. So we've said where do you apply. So just to clarify, it's the nearest Spanish consulate in the country that you are resident in.
That's correct. Yeah. So recently we've had, for example, visas from France. So people who live in Brits that have lived in France, who are resident in France, and they need to apply for the non-lucrative visas in France, then to come to Spain. So if you're a Brit, doesn't mean that you have to go back to the UK to apply. You apply the country where you're resident, unless there's not a Spanish consulate in that country, and then the consulate will inform you where you need to go.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the time on British territories would be London, for example.
There we go. And just while I remember, Anthony and Kerry, Ola, Skatz and Chris from a rainy France, they're coming next year from France, and they'll be applying through their embassy, presumably in Paris.
I think they're coming on an EU platform, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, of course yeah. One of them has an Irish passport. They just applied for that. There we go. Okay, and no more questions from there. So how do you apply for the visa? Briefly, which documents, I suppose? Let's run quickly through those.
Yeah, so if we're talking, obviously, let's talk about the NLV first of all, because that's the most popular one. There's a multitude of documents that you need, but we always talk about the red flags, don't we? So, how you apply, you need to make sure that you obviously qualify financially. You need to make sure you have, you can't undo the past, but you can't have any criminal records. You need to have health care of some form. So we know we have private or state healthcare covered by the S1. At the moment, that agreement's still in place between the UK and Spain. And you also need, or somewhere, you need an address, correspondence address initially in Spain, but you will need an address once you get here to be able to register your visa. So that's the 4, should we say, red flags that we always check before we start the visa process. Obviously, you've got your application forms as well that you need to fill in. There's a medical certificate that you need to explain you have no exportable diseases, etc. And once you have all that together, you'd need to book an appointment at your consulate, and you'd need to present those documents. Some consulates around the world, like San Francisco, actually don't. San Francisco and Paris, for example, don't want an initial appointment with you. They want you to send the documents in. Okay, so they check those documents and they let you know when they've been approved. And then San Francisco, for example, you have to send your passport as well. Then they send it back to you with a visa or without if you don't qualify. Paris, for example, you send the documents. They then let you know when the visa's ready, and you have to go to Paris and get the visa in your passport. So there are variations to the theme, as we know in the UK. You have to, it's a presential appointment once you've got all your stuff together, whether it be London, Manchester or Edinburgh. And then the official line is that you have to take a self-addressed envelope and they send the passport back to you. As we know, all over Facebook, the unofficial line is it depends who you get on the day, if you want your passport back to be able to travel, if they hand it to you or not.
And you send your acro in first when you're applying for your appointment on the email?
Yes.
That right?
Oh, good point. Yeah, especially in the UK now. So you do with so the first people to do that were London, where they use what's it called, Bookit platform, I think it is now, which is like a booking platform. So for example, we use Calendly on our website, which plugs into the website and people can book through there. They use Bookit, which works okay. It's not, I don't think it's because Calendly, but anyway, the consulates use it. But to be able to get the code to register, you have to send an email with specific information and a copy of your ACRO translated along with the apostille. Okay, so that's London. Now, Manchester have recently, we had a terrible time with Manchester late August all through September because they were updating their appointment booking system. And Manchester used to be just send an email with the details and they'd come back to you when they felt like it to get an appointment. Now it's completely changed. Now you have to send them a lot of comprehensive information, which includes your medical certificate, your ACRO, and a photo of you holding your passport like this. Then they send you back a code and you can jump on their system to book an appointment, which at the moment are readily available, which is good. Edinburgh at the moment haven't adopted that system. You can just email them to get an appointment.
Great stuff. And my next question was, does the visa give you residency? This is an interesting one because people think, yeah, right, I've got my visa, that's it, that's the end of the process.
Yeah, no, unfortunately it's not. So the visa once it's issued, is issued for 90 days. Well, to be honest, we've seen it issued for slightly longer. But once you've got your visa, you've got until the expiry date of your visa to come into Spain and register your for residency, basically. Now, it's not advisable that you leave that to the end because of the visa expiry, because you've got 30 days when you get into Spain to register that visa at the Extranjería, at the Foreign Office. And obviously the appointments can be slightly hard to get depending on where you go. So the process is you get your visa, there's 90 days on that visa, you've got to get into Spain during that time, and then once you're here, you've got 30 days to register that to get your residency card. You don't get your residency card straight away, evidently, because they have to manufacture the card. So once you've registered your visa, you hand over the application forms and taxes that you prepay and the proof of where you're living in the form of a padrón certificate, which we'll do another show all about that.
Yeah,
and we've got shows on here about that. And it normally takes around 45 days to get the card back. So in the meantime, you get a little document called a resguardo, which you can operate with to do anything you need.
And it's interesting that you said that the visa is just the document that you need to actually get into the country, really, so that you can apply for residency. People talk about renewing your non-lucrative visa. It's really a misnomer because you're not renewing the visa because you're already in Spain. You're renewing your residency. So it's important to know
you're
that.
renewing your residency, and so you will be applied. So the visa comes in your passport as a sticker. So it's stuck into your passport, which and it has your photo on it that you supplied in the application. It has your NIE number on it. If you've had an NIE number before, then that NIE number should be the same NIE number on your visa. If you haven't had an NIE number before, then you'll be issued an NIE number in your visa. Okay, and then it also has various other codes which are issued by internal codes, shall we say, which are issued by Spanish immigration, and then that stays in your passport forever. Don't want to rip that out. But then when you come to register that, then you get your temporary residency, and that's what you're renewing at the end of those 12 months.
That's interesting. We had I just point out we said the word ACRO earlier, and we didn't even say what it was. The ACRO is the criminal records check in the UK. So, and we talked about that. I had somebody on Facebook telling me off for using the phrase NIE number. He said it's already a number. You don't have to say NIE number because the letter N stands for numero, which means number in Spanish. So you're just saying your identification number. So I said, but that's what everybody calls it online, and you've got to carry on calling it that because.
What we're going to call it next? We have. That's a good one because we have here. We have a list of acronyms that we use when we're. So everything we do is sort of Spanglish, as you can imagine, because we have to we go back to what we're talking about registering cars. So in Spanish it's matriculación. In English that's matriculation. But if you say to somebody about a matriculation of a vehicle in England, they're like, what?
Yeah.
So how would you refer to? It's not a number because it begins with a letter, but how would you refer to it?
Well, you need to say NIE number and you need to say TIE card, even though the letter T stands for tarjeta, which means card. What you're saying is card. Do you have a card? Do you have a number? So it's only for people who don't know what the abbreviation means, so that you recognise the difference between the number and the card itself. So that was my argument on there, and I didn't get a response from when I argued my point. So there you go.
And you're trying to help as well, so it's some people have too much time to complain. But
yeah, absolutely. Oh, and Anthony and Kerry saying yes, just clarifying that Irish passport sorted, but still want to wait for Italian citizenship, which can take 2 years. Hey ho, won't stop us coming over next year. In the meantime, good, and we'll get to meet you properly in person at last, instead of online.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We've asked, does the visa give you residency? Yeah. What does the visa look like when you get it? You talked about that. It's a sticker that you get in your passport.
Yeah, I think what's useful to just point out there is just check the details on the visa as well. So we've had, obviously, the consulates, they get a lot of stick, but they are very, very busy, and mistakes can happen. So we've had mistakes on visas on all fronts. So we've had everything from people who've previously had NIE numbers. We've put NIE numbers on the application forms, submitted. Sorry, am I allowed to say NIE numbers? Yeah, I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, we are now.
The NIE number rebels.
You've explained that.
NIE alphanumeric numbers, whatever. So we've had people, they've given us visas with completely different NIEs, which means they've got completely different registration with the National Police, and we've had to ask them subsequently to merge the two in immigration here and get rid of one. We've had spelling mistakes which have happened on the immigration platform and then reflected on the visa. We've had spelling mistakes on the visas, which when we've contacted immigration, they've turned and gone, no, it's spelled okay here. You have to go back to the consulate and get it rectified. The consulate then just go, no, we're not going to do that. And we have to end up dealing with it here when they get the TIE. So if there is a mistake on the visa, if it's your NIE number, then that's definitely something that needs to be addressed quite quickly. If it's a spelling mistake on a name, it definitely needs to be addressed before you go to register your residency card, should we say.
We've had an interesting question from Andy Cooper, and this goes back to what you've just been saying. Once you have your visa in your passport, when you go to renew your passport, do you get the new passport back with the original document back in it? Well, you don't.
No.
You don't need the visa anymore once you've actually got in to Spain. So, yeah.
No, that comes back to, so the renewal, you get so when you get your residency, get your visa, internally in immigration, you get an expediente, which is a file number. Okay, and that is your file number, your residency file number. You'll have one. I've got one from when I first applied. That's separate to your NIE. That's separate to everybody. That's your file number for your residency. Okay. Now, when we come to do the renewals, we can use that file number to check the status of the renewal or the current status of the person using various different systems. And that's the number which stays with you. So, no, when you renew your passport, you won't get another visa because there's no need to have another visa in there.
There you go. Brilliant. And Gino Monaco, sorry. Calling you Gina. You're a bloke. And hi from Canada. I have a question. I'm a Spanish citizen. How long would it take to get my soon-to-be wife residency in Spain, and what is involved in that?
You did a show on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the show? No, it's this cool. No, that's a good question. Basically, obviously, Gino, you can come to Spain with your Spanish documentation. That's fine. You don't have to do anything. Your soon-to-be wife can come with you, and then she can actually apply in Spain under the EU platform as your spouse, as long as you qualify with the three main things that we always talk about residency, which is healthcare, income, and somewhere to live.
Mm-hmm. So getting married before they came over would be
yes,
best way of proving.
Yeah. That is, and they do look at if it's a recent marriage as well, depending on where you're applying, they would look at the longevity as well of of the relationship. So, I mean, here in Malaga, we recently had a very strange one where they, even though someone had been married for a long time, they were still, because the application took so long, they're asking for proof that they were living together here in Spain, like expenditures out of bank accounts, very much like the withdrawal agreement applications we used to do. So yeah, if it's a recent marriage, then you might be asked for more documentational proof that you've been together for a long time.
Joint bank account, that's the best one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In all residency applications, if you're using money or savings, joint bank accounts the way forward.
Yes, because you never do that with somebody that you're not really close to, really.
Right.
There we go. So that's on that one. Are there any more basic things we want to cover on the visa before I go on to the questions from social media?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the only thing is, obviously, is the visa lead-in time. As we know, when people are applying for the various visas, take various amount of times to be approved, depending on what you're applying for. But going back to the NLB, as we know, of our experience the last 20 months, it's been like a roller coaster, hasn't it? So summer is a bad time. I'm already now talking to people who are in the capital gains cycle, thinking about coming at the back end of next year because of property sales. But you've got to be very aware that if that throws you into the summer application period, that your visa could take a lot longer to come out. At the moment, where we are in autumn, we're all the way up to around the end of August, beginning of September. All our visas have come out quite quickly now. So we're up to a 6-week lead-in time from appointment to visa, and I think that's going to shorten up to Christmas, and then we're going to see a delay again at Christmas because it's a holiday period. So there's no rhyme or reason really, apart from the holidays tend to delay visas a bit.
One other quick question's just come in on the live chat. Hello, Mrs. Carolita77. While we wait for the empadronamiento, can we travel abroad?
If you've got, don't know what their circumstances. So, I mean, if you're, let's invent one then. So if you come over on your NLV, you're waiting for your padron, and your visa's still in date, then you can travel as long as you've got days within your Schengen and come back in again. When you go to register your visa, they'll use the last entry stamp to start your residency.
Okay. There we go. Hope that covers your answer there, Mrs. Carolita. There we go. Let's move on to this question from Jason Willie. It's quite a long question, and you probably won't be able to read it yourself. So let's get.
I can't see any notes on because I'm on my phone. So.
Oh, there you go. Then you'll definitely won't be able to read this. It's tiny writing anyway, and there's 2 parts to it. So I'm going to paraphrase it. Basically, they came over on a non-lucrative visa in August. They're trying to get their belongings and vehicle through customs. They've asked a local gestor in Alicante to help them, and customs are asking for certificado de residencia y baja en el Reino Unido, which is, certificate of residency in the UK. So what do they need to do? What is that certificate, and why are customs asking for it? What do they do?
Yeah, this is the common misunderstanding about the bajo consular. So a lot of the consulates in Spain, so we're talking about foreign consulates in Spain, will issue their citizens with a document called a bajo consular, which basically means that person is signed onto that consulate and it's proved that they've moved to Spain. And then aduanas or customs will allow you to then import your goods using that certificate because you've declared the fact at the consulate that you're living in Spain. But in the British consulate stopped issuing these in 2014. So I had to get one actually. Me and Lara had to get one to get married here back in 2008 in the civil registry. But now they don't exist. So our main experience with this is the vehicles. So we do a lot of vehicle imports, and obviously people who are coming for change of residency don't have to pay tax and duty on the vehicle import. And what we normally do is prove that they're no longer a tax resident in Spain. So, sorry, in the UK, tax returns in the UK, and they do that by using a document called a P85. So basically, you go online, you make a declaration to HMRC of when you've actually left the UK. Obviously, the dates on that have to coincide with your residency, etc., etc. And then you get basically a print out of that document. And certainly here in Malaga, they're very happy using that document to waive any sort of taxes on goods, etc. They will ask for other proof of where you've come from, so you can do that in the form of utility bills, maybe council tax bills as well, etc., etc. Because they want to see that you've lived for at least 12 months in your previous residence. You've then signed off fiscally, and then you've come to Spain. You're going to have your padron and your residency registered here.
Jason, unfortunately, has tried showing his tax returns, UK tax returns. Unfortunately, he says he sold his house last year to avoid capital gains tax. So council tax and utilities are over a year old. He's been living in a motorhome to try and bide his time while he's waiting to get to Spain, and now he's in Spain. So he doesn't seem to have any of the proof. He's had that big gap, and we were talking about this on before we started the show today. This is it's a warning to not go off the radar before you move. We should do a show about that.
Yeah, especially if you're bringing goods. I mean, what he may be able to do, I mean, there's surely, I mean, it's hard. I mean, obviously, the P85 is going to be a big thing for him. Maybe that's the one thing that he hasn't done, which you can prove to Alicante that is, and you can backdate that as well. So it will have a presentation date. So you've presented it today, but I've declared from X date that I'm no longer a fiscal resident, shall we say, in Spain, in the UK again. I'm sure that, I mean, they do take all documentation into account. So he may have bank accounts, so he can prove expenditures in the UK on a daily basis, maybe. And if he didn't have utility bills, but obviously his motorhome was parked somewhere, I'm sure he might have been paying some sort of ground rent or something. There is some documentation or proof that he can get together along with the P85 to prove that.
Does the P45 help?
Not really. Well, it would do in the sense that you've given up your job, but that's more, we're going back to the visas. It doesn't really help with aduanas because they don't really care whether you've given up your job or not. You know, that's more of a qualification for the non-lucrative visa, where, as we know, they're very insistent now on proving that you're not currently working.
Right. That's good to know. Right, we'll get another question up, and this one is about the S1, and this is from Thomas Patchell. Let's see, question 2, there it is. And he says, please can you advise, I'm Irish and wife is English. We both hold EU passports. We're both receiving UK state pensions, so they're entitled to the S1. When we move to Spain to retire, what do we need to do to get residency and register our S1, etc.? Thank you.
So both got EU passports. You need to visit your local stamperia, go through the process what we did together, me and you, which is visit the desk, and you have to prove evidently that you've got enough money to reside in Spain. Now, here in Malaga, depending on where they're going, here in Malaga, if you've got a translated copy of your latest state pension statement, you know, you get that letter. I think it's every April. You get a letter which states what you get in either a weekly or I have seen monthly as well, but it's normally weekly basis. Proof of that going into account, and that's actually fine for the income here. So I would say for a state pensioner, get one of those each. An S1, you only have to present the S1 at the appointment. You can't register it before you get residency. So to register an S1, you need to have your residency and a padron certificate, then register that with the Social Security. And at the moment, there's no need, certainly here, and I know in Alicante, there's no need to pre-register the S1 like there is at the consulate visa applications, where you have to go with proof that you've actually submitted the S1 to Social Security.
So when you're going for your visa application, how do you prove you've got the healthcare then with the S? with the S1?
Well, it's quite farcical, to be honest with you. With the consulates, they need to. That is one thing they need to get their act together with. Is the S1. So at the moment, they're the S1. You can't register an S1 until you've got residency in a padron. But the consulates request that you have registered your S1 on the Social Security platform, which then produces a document which proves that you've actually registered the S1. Okay, so at the moment, everybody's going to a UK consulate and applying, for example, for an NLV. If you've got an S1, you're going to be going for an NLV retirement visa. Then you have to go with your S1 and the proof that you've registered it on a platform here in Spain with Social Security. What happens generally then, you can use that proof to get your NLV. The NLV then gets approved. Then when you come to Spain, that registration you've done will end up with Social Security. The Social Security will knock that back 100% for sure because it hasn't got a residency card or a padron. And then you have to go through the process of submitting that documentation again.
Okay, so it's all possible.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation where the consulates are requesting this we're calling it a pre-registration, but they're just they're asking for proof you've registered something which you can't actually register till you get here. So basically, it's a fast registration. So we're doing it with the passports and helping people get their we call it a pre-registration. And what's happening at the moment is that the Social Security are taking that long to get back to people anyway. By the time that we've got the visas and the padron and the resguardo from the TIE appointment, then we're managing to get that in before the Social Security even get any contact with us and saying we haven't got enough documentation.
Right. Andy Cooper's back on the questions, and he says, if you're renting when you move over before finding a permanent residence, does this make the process more difficult? And do you need to then change your address after finding a permanent address?
So the first question, renting. So very interesting question because it's something that comes up an awful lot with what we call our stage 2. So should we call stage 1 is acquiring the visa, applying for the visa, getting in your passport. Once you've got it in your passport, we move on to stage 2, which is registering the visa in Spain. Various areas have different requirements, but the biggest requirement, which differs in different areas, is the padron document, the certificate of you registering at your local town hall. Now, here in Malaga, for example, they don't want one. They're not too bothered. Well, the first time you come to register your non-lucrative visa, so you don't have to have one on the first time because they understand that you're in the you've only got that 30-day window to register, or at least 30 days to book your appointment to go and register. So they don't request one. Other areas like Valencia, for example, are very, very strict. You have to have a padron certificate to confirm where you're going to be living. Other areas like Granada and Murcia, if the address which is on your police file matches the address on the application forms, you don't need a padron. If it doesn't, you do. So what we've had in various circumstances is people who have previously had NIE numbers as non-residents. That NIE number is a registration on the police immigration platform. That's associated to an address. We've done a whole NLV process using a completely different address. They've been approved. So you would think that address would be updated on the system. But when we've come to register the TIE card, it isn't. So the person has had to present a padron certificate to verify their address.
So, and to get the padron certificate, your permanent address needs to be a contract. If you're renting, it needs to be over a certain period of time, doesn't it?
It does, yes. So you normally say it'd be a long-term rental contract, definitely over 11 months. Now, we recently had one in Mojaca, for example, and it was they accepted 6 months. So various town halls have different levels of requirements for the definitely it's more than 6 months, and most are the 11-month plus. Now, some people, obviously, knowingly, depending on the situation and where you live, get a long-term contract knowing that they're probably going to break it and lose their deposit, just to get the CIE card registered. I'm definitely not suggesting that anybody does that, but that's what some people do. And others, like here in Malaga, for example, you don't need to, so you can actually quite happily fleet around for a bit, register your non-lucrative visa, and not having a permanent address. Certainly, when you come to renewal, though, it's definitely advisable to have your permanent address in place.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So that's all the questions from the live chat, and most of the questions from social media. We did have a multiple choice question from Roy Turner, but he's already asked you loads and loads of questions through your phone call. You've given him loads of your time already, haven't you? So and we haven't got. Yeah. So we won't. I won't go through those online because we don't quite have time before 11 to go through them today. So shall we give out prizes?
Yes, let's do it. So did you send me Bev's address? I don't know if you did or not. I'll double check.
Yeah, if I didn't, then I definitely have that. And
definitely send that across again, and I'll double check anyway.
Yeah. What about Cyprian? C Bunter. That's
yes.
On there. Cyprian, send us either to info@YouTooSpain.com, or is it info@upsticks.es?
Yeah, or you can support at upsticks.es.
Support, there you go. So send us an email with your postal address. That can be in the UK, and we'll get.
But you can send it to nie@upsticks.es.
There you go. Just about anything at upsticks.es will get through to you, won't it?
Yeah. And I'm going to do a new one now. I'm going to do a new email address. I'm going to do NIE number@upsticks.es.
Of course, yes. It's got it NIE number. I'll just rub it in. There we go. So, Bev says, seems hard to get a rental agreement of 11 months due to summer holiday rental. Yeah.
That's a big one. I mean, that's one thing that you have to be aware of when you're doing your planning. There's probably a whole show there, is that we get a lot of people who are getting rental for the winter, and then they're going to have to look for somewhere in May, which is a complete nightmare, as we know, in Spain. So unless you're planning to actually have a property or buy a property or be researching over the winter, don't leave yourself without somewhere to live in May in Spain.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good plan. Emma Gadsby says, any update on the Nomad visa yet? No, nothing's come through yet. And Bev says, oh yes, I presume you've not had your envelope through yet, Bev. So yeah, we'll check up on that one anyway. Mrs. Carolita's saying, do you know the waiting times for the EU ICT visa resolution after the application gets filed in Malaga? I've been told that after that approval we'll need to empadronar. That will add more waiting time.
The Malaga at the moment is in general, the immigration in Malaga's got quite a backlog, to be honest with you. And we, for the first time this year, we saw applications go over the 90-day period, of which once it goes to 90 days, we can submit an incidencia, shall we say, on their platform and say, well, they're taking a while in immigration. We actually complained about 2, which took over 90 days, and because the administrative law is that if it goes over 90 days, you can consider it as rejected because it's administrative silence.
Mm-hmm.
When we spoke to them about that, or sent them a message, they sent a message back saying it can be considered as administrative silence and rejected until we review it, and if we see it's good, then we'll approve it. So it didn't really make. So basically, they're just telling us to wait, but they can't tell us that they've not abided by the 90-day rule.
Okay. There you go. So it's good luck with that one. So I think what we'll do is we'll round up now, so that then I can completely round up before the hour's up myself. So thank you a huge amount again, Chris, for taking your time, and everybody give Chris a virtual hug. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll continue. We'll go what happens next of the basics. So we go on to the residency when you get to Spain, I think.
Yeah, that'd be good. If we can derive from other people's experiences as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And we might get somebody on from the caravanning people as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we're working on that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Definitely.
So thanks
Brilliant.
very much, Chris. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Have a good gig.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
There we go. So it's time to find out who our famous guests are on next week's show on our Cozy Family City around the Cozy Family Pool. Someone do a drum roll. Shall I do that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, next week our celebrity guests will be Anthony and Ian from A New Life in the Sun. Yes, yes, indeed. The lads are back. Remember earlier this year when they were just moving from France to Spain to set up their new B&B here in the mountains in the south of Spain. They came on the show on the same day that they were on the telly as well. Well, we are going to find out exclusively whether they've managed to get their B&B ready for their guests this summer. Did they get the swimming pool put in? Has it been a complete disaster? Barry from Unitech says, Antonio Banderas. Yeah, he does. He looks a lot like Antonio Banderas, does Anthony. So has it been a complete disaster? Have they managed to get anything done? What's going on with them? Tune in next week and find out. And in the meantime, we've got the Monday show, which has now moved to Monday evenings. So you can watch it live if you're in Europe and you work during the day. A lot of people have said, yeah, can you put it on in the evening instead of at lunchtime so that I can watch it live? And also, if you're on one of the American continents, you can now watch it in the morning instead of in the middle of the night. So, as usual, that show will be focused on saving you money. So we look at the currency exchange rates and the energy crisis, which is big news at the moment, and how they both affect the cash in your pockets and how you can help yourself there by saving on energy and saving money. And that's whether you're moving to Spain or not. There will be something important there for you. Does it clash with curry? Barry from Unitech says, I don't care if it clashes with curry. So Monday the 17th of October at 7 o'clock UK time, that's 8 o'clock in Spain. I think we'll stick to that time for now. Tune in and I'll be following up on last week's show where we solved the energy crisis. We did. Watch the show. Watch last week's show. If you don't believe me, I'll put a link below to that if I get time before I go to this gig. And we'll be covering ways that you can remember to do the right thing and to save money by doing the information that you got on the last show. That was a stupid sentence. You know what I mean. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. There's a little thing down here. Subscribe and click on the bell. And when you click on the little bell, it'll have a thing saying all. Make sure you click all and you'll be the first to know what's coming up every week, including also the midweek videos. Where I usually make a video on Wednesday evenings that you'll either see a brilliant new video each week packed with groovy information for you, or an amusing piece of clickbait for your entertainment, just like the Brexit one that I did a couple of weeks ago, which almost went viral. Or you'll get an exciting expert live guest. Depends. I've got somebody coming on from Age in Spain very soon. Yes, Helen from Age in Spain. So that's going to be good. And the adventure never ends on this show. If I don't see you on one of those two, I'll see you next Saturday at our regular time of 9 a.m. if you're in the UK or Ireland or the Canary Islands, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. I can't wait. My lovely wife Liz says hi. As usual, you can join her for free virtual yoga and meditation on her YouTube channel, U2 Yoga and Aromatherapy. The link is below with all of the other ones. So that's all for this week. Thank you to everybody on the live chat for joining in. You've been absolutely lovely. Some brilliant questions there. And we'll see you next week. Somebody pass around the tapas. I've got the munchies. Peace and love. Oh, and let's do the dance once more. Thank you. Ciao, Anthony and Kerry. Bye for now. And do the dance.